This video is a full guide on how to create Spanish guitar beats, all from scratch in FL Studio. We are only going to be using plugins and VSTs, so you do not need to know how to play the real guitar, but I'm still going to make sure that it sounds very realistic. Now, I will be breaking down everything from the melody to the drums in a step-by-step process, so make sure that you watch the entire video so you do not miss out on anything. With that being said, let's get right into FL Studio. Alright, so we are now here in a brand new FL Studio file, as you guys can see, and the first thing we want to do is just pick a BPM. So in this case we start off with 140, but I'm actually going to lower it a little bit down, so something like 120 is going to work nicely. To be completely fair, you can actually experiment a lot with different BPMs. I know a lot of people like to work in under 100, so something like 90 to 95, that also works, but in this case I'm just gonna, like I said, go with 120. Now the next thing we want to do is pick a guitar VST. Obviously there are a lot of different guitar VSTs out there, as well as some people like the pick nylon guitar you can also find in Contact, but in my personal opinion, this nylon sky guitar in Omnisphere from the Sonic extensions is by far my favorite guitar when it comes to these Spanish type of melodies. Regardless of what guitar VST you go for, just make sure that you use a nylon guitar. The reason for this is because that nylon guitar really gives us that Spanish type of sound. So in this tutorial we are going to be using this exact guitar right here, so if you want to use the same preset, feel free to do so. Now we just need to open up the piano roll, and the next thing we want to do is pick a scale. Now this is actually crucial because we're going to do something a little bit different than usual. So to pick a scale, you just want to go over to this arrow right here, go to view, and then pick scale highlighting. Now from here, what people usually do is they just go for this minor natural, and then they just pick a random root note. But since we are going for that Spanish type of sound, we actually don't want to go for the minor natural. We're actually going to go for the minor harmonic. This is seriously essential. Make sure you pick this one because it's going to give you some more half steps, as you guys can see in the scale right here. And this is seriously crucial to really get that Spanish sound out of your guitar. Alright, now that we have all the fundamentals down, it's time to get started with our guitar pattern. And firstly, we're just going to be working in these first 4 bars over here. Just make a simple chord progression that really has that Spanish sound, and then we're just going to build off of that later on. So to start off with, we are working in the C harmonic minor scale. So let us just start off by putting a note on the C4 right here. This is pretty much going to be our root note, so we're just going to have this for the first bar. And what we're going to do from here is actually just copy this note, and we're going to pitch it down up 8 semitones. So you just want to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it's going to land on this G sharp 4 right here. And from here, we're just going to go back to the C, but this time we're going to be working in it 1 octave up. So not on the C4, but on the C5. Just put a note down there and make a simple minor chord like this. So this is pretty much going to be our first full chord right here. Now, since it's a guitar, we don't want to have all the notes playing at the same exact time. We actually want to strum them out a little bit, but we're going to do this very differently from what we usually tend to do. So let's firstly start off with these 2 notes right here. As I said, this C4 is going to be our root note, so this is just going to hit as it is. So before we start strumming this, make sure to hit this magnet tool, and you want to make sure you are in 3rd beat. This is essential because it's really going to give us that Spanish type of bounce. So we're just going to take this G sharp and move it 1 space to the right here, and then we're going to take this whole C minor chord over here and just move it 2 spaces to the right, leaving the G5 on top and moving these 2 1 more note to the right. Now highlight this C5, hold Alt on your keyboard, and just move it slightly off grid like this. So usually when people are strumming their guitars, they would usually go from the bottom note and strum these to the right here. So it's going to go from the bottom to the top, right? But since we want to switch this up a little bit, what we are actually going to do is go from the top to the bottom. As you guys can see, it's going from the G5, and then we're just moving it downwards. Obviously, make sure to go down here and mess a little bit around with the velocity so it's a little bit more natural as well. And this is pretty much our first chord. Now we are going to make a second chord over here, so we're pretty much just going to build off of this. This time we're going to start on the F4, and we are kind of going to be doing the same thing. So let's just put a note on the D5 and then strum it down in a downwards pattern. So it's going to go right here, then to this D sharp down there. From here, we're just going to copy this note over here and strum these 2. So we're kind of doing the same thing as we did right here. You want to make sure to do this layer type of trick because it's really going to give us that authentic sound from our guitar. So you can already hear we have that Spanish chord progression going, but we're gonna make it even vibier on these last two parts. Copy this F over. This time we're gonna start on the G, but we don't want it to be too high pitched. So this G, we're actually just gonna pitch it down a whole octave. Now this is going to give us a very deep type of sound. So let's just copy the same C and pitch it up 2 octaves, so we can just layer these 2 notes and then make our main pattern inside of these 2. So again, let us just do the same exact thing. We're gonna start over here and we're just gonna strum it down in a downwards pattern like this. From here you can kind of play a little bit around with what notes you want to add. If you even want to add any, you don't really have to, but I think we're just gonna add 1 note right here as well as a little bit of a note right here, and we can maybe even try to keep this G a bit consistent, so maybe add it somewhere towards the end. Right, for this last section we want to make sure that we have a smooth transition until it hits back to the main chord right here. So to do this, we're actually going to split it up into 2 different type of chords. So the first one is actually going to be on this D4. We're just going to extend it out halfway, so it's only this part, and then we're going to have a new chord on this section. Let's keep this D consistent, so we're just going to add 1 more over here, and then again strum downwards. So we're just going to do this and then have these 2 strum a little bit. You can manually strum it by holding Alt and then just moving it slightly off grid, but sometimes I just like to highlight both of them and hit Alt S on my keyboard to really get that natural strum as a shortcut. Like I said, we are going to split it up into 2, so this last section over here is going to be a new chord. We're just going to start it off on a G3 yet again, and from here we're pretty much just going to be using these notes to kind of create a cool little pattern towards the end. Remember that we are doing this in a triplet pattern, so you can just start adding some notes right here and see how that sounds. Now this is pretty much our main chord progression. Yeah, you can really hear that Spanish vibe off of this. So this is pretty much perfect. We're just gonna have a top melody along with it. Alright, so as you guys can hear, we really have that Spanish sound out of our chord progression. Now what we are missing is just a little bit of a top melody over here, so we can kind of create that momentum. Now with that being said, we are going to add some quick effects just to really get that Spanish sound. The first thing you want to do is just make sure to have a low cut EQ. This is really going to remove all those low frequencies from the guitar. This is seriously essential for that Spanish sound, because if you have too many low frequencies, it's not really going to sound right. It's a little bit too much bass. When you remove it, it's super natural. So that's the sound we want to go for. With this, we're also just going to add a quick reverb. Now for the reverb, we want to keep it a bit low, so something like 9 to 10%. Not too much, just to give it a little bit of ambience. This is perfect. Get a little bit of a vintage feel using RC20. Turn down the distortion as well as the noise. It's pretty much the wobble we want from this. Yeah, that's perfect. Now for the top melody, you can just open up a new pattern and create it from there, but I'm actually just gonna have it on this second part, and then we can maybe just put it into a different pattern later on. But what we are gonna start off with is just put a note right over here. So gonna start on the G6 a little bit up top, so you want those high frequencies. Now you want to make sure that you don't want to have them hit at the same exact time, so we definitely want to offset this one a little bit like this, and then what I like to do is just hold shift and kind of copy these over, because what it's going to do is going to make sure that these notes are also a little bit offset so that you don't have them hit exactly when they're supposed to. Again, it just helps to really get that authentic and realistic sound from the guitar. So we're keeping that downward strumming type of pattern consistent for the top melody as well. Then we're just going to add a little bit over here as well. So again, we're copying these ones so we can have them a little bit offset. So shorten this one to really get an authentic sound right here. This is going to be super fire. A trick I like to do when I'm adding these really high frequency notes up here, especially with this guitar, if you just go down here and chop up some of the notes you're already using, it's actually going to give it a really cool type of sound. Just take a listen. You can hear how authentic that top line sounds. It's crazy. Yeah, so you pretty much just want to continue doing the same thing we did for the first part on the second part as well. So you just want to mess a little bit around with some of the notes you're already using and make sure that you shorten some of them so they don't extend all the way out. Again, it's just going to help us get that realistic sound. So that is pretty much it for the guitar pattern. The next thing we want to do is just add a little bit of that percussion in the background. So what I like to do is just open up Arcade, and there is this cool little Spanish bank that we can use just to add those percussions. But if you don't have Arcade, you can obviously just open up Splice and just search for bongo percussion. percussion or any sort of percussion you can just tuck in the background. In this case, we're just going to go over here and search up Spanish, and I think it's going to pop up. Yeah, so you see you have these three. Let's just use this first one and let's see if we can just find some cool perks. Yeah, so I think this is going to work nicely. Yeah, that's perfect. What we're going to be doing for this is just put it in the second insert. Open up this EQ right here, and then we're gonna pick this radio preset, just so you can hear it's a little bit in the background. The next thing we're gonna do is just open up this bass right here from Contact, and we're just gonna lay down a simple pattern for the low end, just so we can fill out those frequencies we removed earlier. Yeah, so we're just gonna have this pattern repeat. Next thing we're going to do is just open up distant voices in Arcade, just to kind of fill out a little bit of the background noise. So we're going to use this vocal more as a little bit of a pad. I'm going to show you guys some cool effects you can add to really get that effect out of it. So let's just put down this vocal right here. Together with the guitar, it sounds like this. Yeah, this is fire. For the effects, open up RC20 and go over to this magnitude transition 1 preset. It's really going to give it a lot of space, and that's exactly what we're looking for. Next, make sure to open up an EQ as well and really cut out these high frequencies. You can even try to pitch it up 1 octave like this. And then to make the mix a little bit better, just use a Pancake 2, it's a free plugin. Just pans it from left to right. If you have some accents, you can also just add them in underneath the pattern like this. This is pretty optional though, you don't really have to, but it's gonna give it some more bounce. Last things we're going to do to the melody is just open up Spaghetti Western and just open up the trumpet. You can pretty much play around with either a whistle or a trumpet, but in this case for these Spanish beats you should usually go with the trumpet. We're going to pick the fast legato and just play around with the keyboard until we have a nice and cool pattern. Alright, so with the sample finished, it's time to add some drums. As for all the drum sounds I'm using, they are of course coming from my Mirage multi-kit. So if you guys like any of the drum sounds you hear in this video, you can obviously check out the whole multi-kit using the link down below, or you can just go on my website, which is BBMarko.com. Whichever one you choose, the kit is currently on sale, so make sure to catch it while you can. As for the drums on this, it's actually very simple. The first thing we're going to do is just start off with a very simple and short lasting open hat on the first hit. I'm just going to go over and pick this one right here. Pretty much a perfect sound to just start off with. So we're just going to keep that open hat right here, and then we just want to go over with the clap next. So we're going to have this clap pattern right here, and then I'm actually just going to layer this with a rim. So let's go over to the rim section and let's just layer it with this one right here. Now for the hi-hats, we want to make sure to actually have a lot of rolls on this one. So I'm actually going to hit Alt and U and just have a super fire roll right here. Now since our melody and hi-hats are so busy, the rest of the drums are actually going to be very basic. So we're just going to add a little bit of a snare to get some more bounce. A bit of a standard pattern right here. Add this open hat as well. Super low key in the back, not too much. A little bit of a perk as well, just the finishing touch before the 808. This is bouncy. Now I think it's time we had to kick in the 808. Now with that, we're also just gonna go and layer this kick. So pretty much just copy paste the kick over and just route everything to the C5, but I will actually adjust some of the kick hits a little bit before or after the 808. Yeah, that right there is fire. So just put this one a little bit before. Right now I'm quickly just gonna arrange the whole thing and then we'll take a final listen to the whole beat. Right, so here we have the full thing.
Shut up, Marko. Marko.
A little bit of a cool build up right here. You can hear the percs in the background. Top line on the guitar. Vocals on the low end. We'll pitch them up. Guitar without the top melody. When it comes back. Then it drops in again. The vocals come in. Basically part of the verse right here. Trumpet in the back. Then we have this bridge section. Teasing the 808 a little bit right here. And the drops.